Good evening and welcome to the August meeting of the Development Review Board for the town of Richmond. If you haven't already, please sign in the back there. And if you offer evidence or comments during a hearing, that gives you the right to ask the court to be an interested party, which means that you would have the right to appeal any decision we would make. So I encourage you to speak up. And that goes for anybody out in the audience as well. We have one hearing today, SUB 2024-02, Peaceable Kingdom LLC, 26 Peaceable Kingdom. They're seeking to amend their previously approved residential planned unit development. The applicants are seeking to add 3 new lots. The state of Vermont passed what was called Act 47, which allowed more density in more urban areas. And Gary, Peaceable Kingdom, is taking advantage of that and asking to increase the number of lots that they have available to build. So having said that, Gary, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, let me swear you in. Do you swear or affirm, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth?
I do.
Why don't you tell us what you have in mind here, please?
Okay. So first, good evening, Matt and David. And
Oh yeah, I'd like to welcome Matt.
I haven't met the new Matt. Oh, nice to meet you and Roger. I was wondering if you could. I did see Susan, Ed Wells, and Tom and Wendy there. I'm just curious. Anybody else in the audience?
That's it, Gary.
All right. All right. So I was thinking I'd start by going over the site plan in a little bit of detail, just so I don't know how familiar everybody is with it. So if we start in lot 1, right on the corner of Cochrane and Thompson Road, that was a Victorian era house that I did a rather severe took off the roof, took out the floors, reframed every window, and took off the kitchen addition, took down the garage, removed the porch, built a new one, and then divided it into 2 units, split down the middle, and each unit has been sold. And they own, it's not a footprint of the building. They own the land that you can see where the lot line is. And also that little shed that's there, they each own half the shed, and the front unit owns that little sliver of land that goes with the back half of the shed. Lot 2 is currently not been built on. It's a fully approved lot. Lot 3 is the yellow house, the first one we built in the development. And that recently had a freestanding outbuilding added to it by the owners. The lot in the corner is owned by Sharon Hallman. That was the last house I built before the one that I'm working on now. And then if you look at where lot 5, lot 6, lot 7, lot 8, and a little bit of the common land there in between, that was under the previous approval, all one approved lot for a house. So we, because I was hoping that the zoning changes that were passed by the planning commission last week, and sent on to the select board, but have not been finalized by the select board. I thought that was going to happen quicker, and we built that house according to what the new planning commission approved district allows. But because it's taken so long, we decided to come in under Act 47. Although everything we've laid out in this proposed subdivision meets the new planning commission approved district. One thing I wanted to discuss, and it gets into like master planning a little bit here. If you look at lot 7, you can see it.
Hang on one sec, Gary, one sec.
Okay,
No, I just want to make sure didn't want to make sure we didn't miss you. Go ahead, sorry.
all right. If you look at just north of lot 7, there's kind of a little piece that juts down in there and abuts the Wells property. A little bit of triangle or trapezoid, I don't know how you want to describe it. And it was mentioned in the master plan section of the application, and I did this because I was under the impression, and I still am under the impression, that if I don't mention it in the master plan, it might prohibit me from ever doing it. So what I mentioned in there was, and that if the Wells property should ever come up for sale and should I ever buy it, that little triangular piece could be added to some of the Wells property to create another lot that would be across the green from lot 2. And then the remainder of the land would be with the Wells, and maybe some of the Wells lot would be added to the common land to kind of square up the main central green. But even though the Wells and I have mentioned it briefly, I want to be clear, there's no discussions about doing this. There's no ongoing discussions. It's just something I felt I needed to add just in the very remote chance it happens. So I know the Wells contacted me after I submitted this and said they wished that I hadn't put that in, and I wouldn't have put it in if I didn't have the understanding of the master plan section that I have. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not sure. So then lot 8 is the remainder land, which we're trying to get approved for 1 unit. If you pull back from, go farther up in the sky and look down on this property, the main central green common area land, not the little spurs off it, like where Peaceable Street starts and the couple places where the spur roads go off. We're really trying to design this so it looks like an extension of the Round Church Park, which has houses all around it, plus a round church. So we have that. And then if you go even higher, the Round Church Park abuts the half acre or almost acre land that the Historical Society owns, which is open, which abuts my house lot, which was a lawn and abutting it and will be again, but right now it's I have not repaired it from the last year's floods. So the idea is coming off the bridge is to have one big open green space that I think is an asset to the Round Church. I mean, that's subject to opinion. The darkest lot on lot 6 is the lot that I'm most concerned about tonight. It's a house I hope to complete early October. Would like to transfer in early October. It's a house built for Jim Feinson and Robin Tebbets. And see, if you look at the common land area, the hatched area, that is 24% of the total property. So the new lots, like I say, we're taking what was one lot and we're adding lot 5, the lot at the head of the green, lot 6, the lot that is that house is nearly complete, lot 7. And lot 8, which were one lot, and now I'm hoping will be 4 lots, but one was already approved, so it's 3 new lots.
But you're not asking for that now.
Well, I am asking for that now, and it depending on, I guess, your reaction, it's a little bit complicated, but I'd like to
Well, but
try
you're
to
not
think
showing.
the
you're not
best way to
showing-
go through this. And maybe, I was thinking maybe the best way is to just go through and discuss Tyler's staff notes, because I think he gets into all the issues that I want to raise, and it might be the easiest way to do that.
But
Is there
Gary,
any questions about
Gary,
the
let
site
me
plan?
interrupt you.
Yeah,
So I'm unclear. You have this big open space and it's not subdivided. There's no lot lines or anything else. And yet you're saying that you want to subdivide that before us now?
I think he's talking about lot
These-
8, Gary.
These.
yeah, lot 8, I mean, that is part of the subdivision.
Oh,
And now
I'm not further subdividing that.
okay,
That's
I
part of the-
understand that.
Okay,
I heard him to say.
Gotcha.
Hang
all
on,
right,
let's
so,
share my screen.
Well,
Gary, give me 1 second. I just want to share my screen here. I think that might actually end up be
okay,
better here for everybody. Here, can you see the screen now, Gary?
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Gary, what is the kind of the plan for lot 8 there? Cause is it too hilly? Looks like it's pretty hilly there. Is that, you're not looking to do any further development in there, or do you have a plan for lot 8 or any thoughts on it?
Well, my plan is, my son's helped me on the early part of the subdivision, and my plan is kind of that they'll take over that lot, and I don't know what their plans will be.
Okay,
It's right now, I'd like to just get it approved as, you know, the one lot, but I also don't want to have any restrictions put on it that would be too prohibitive. Like I said, there's already one restriction on it, which is if you look at the Butler to Forest line, the long line there that divides us, and then you go to the east side up to the second pin, I think, and then come across parallel to the Butler to Forest line.
So this way, Gary.
No, the other way. Come back in that corner where you were. Yeah, then go down towards the bottom of the paper. Go down to the second pin. That's the first pin. Somewhere near that second pin, it may be the second pin. And then if you go across parallel to the left, parallel to the long Butler to Forest line, and then you go back to where that offset jog is to make a pretty much straight rectangle. That's a 1 acre lot.
I see
And
it.
that-
Okay.
That 1 acre is under a restriction that it can only be used, maximum housing is 1 unit. So that already reduces the potential for what is available on that 2.6, I think it's 2.64 acres. Yeah. My understanding is that Act 47 can't trump private agreements and private covenants. I mean, I can't imagine that would be the case. So if that's the case, then that's one house can be built there. And then there could be some other houses. Even though the Act 47 has 1 or 5 houses per acre, which is 8,000 something, in the homeowners association declaration, I have stated that there can be no more than 1 house every 12,000 something. So it's already about a 50% increase from what is the minimum. But, you know, there is some potential for other housing there, and given what the town assesses, you know, open land now, like I've had the town assessor break out what the tax bill would just be on lot 6 if there's nothing built on it. And the assessment for that bare lot is 260,000 now, which is stunning to me. So if gets carried out onto lot 8, I mean, I probably won't be able to hang on to that as much as I'd like to. I'd have to subdivide it and sell it off. So I hope you don't restrict that portion. I feel like
no,
go ahead.
quite the contrary. I was wondering why you weren't trying to go for more. Because you have some of the last land here kind of that's developable in the village area. So I was just curious what the plan was for that final 2.5 acres.
Yeah, so well, I started this before anybody thought about Act 47. And I tried to design something that would fit in with the neighborhood, both architecturally, but also somewhat to size. And I came up with that first development that got approved. I took the total acreage that was in that development, divided it by 6, and that's where I got the 12,000 something per lot. And
Do you know how, off the top of your head, how many more, if at 12,000 square feet per lot, how many more lots you could, on top of lot 7? How many more lots you could actually have?
I would say 1, 2. I'd say the absolute maximum would be 4. Not that I'm intending to do that, but just knowing how the land lays out and where the wetland buffer is and where that 1 acre restricted acre is.
Right. Okay.
So do you think it's a good approach for me to just go through the staff notes and go through comments? Why don't I start doing that? If you think it's not a good approach, just tell me.
Well, why don't you take the staff notes, Gary, and go through them, because that would be where our questions would lie.
All
Do you want
right.
me to pull up, David, do you want me to pull up my notes with Gary's comments, or do you want to pull up just my clean notes?
Yeah, pull up your clean notes and let
Yeah.
Gary respond too.
Because his are up there too, so.
All right. So the first note is number 11. And it says the applicant site plan is missing the names of owners of lot 2, 5, 6, and 7. So 2, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are owned by Peaceable Kingdom. I'm sorry if it's not clear. I thought it was clear because on the box in the site plan, it talks about if you scroll up a little, yes, that box. Yeah, keep going up a little bit farther.
I'm up pretty far. You wanted me to go to more
Oh,
right?
I mean, I want to see more of the bottom. I'm saying it backwards. Yeah, see it says owner applicant, Peaceful Kingdom. So I guess I had assumed that anything that wasn't sold off, you people would understand it's still owned by Peaceable Kingdom LLC. But I can
have Chris make that as a staff note over on the
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, just typically, Gary, when I get stuff like that, like I usually have all of the owners like listed on the actual lot itself. That might be tricky with yours with some of those smaller lots. You might not be able to fit it in there, but it does typically need to be noted who owns what lot. So
Yeah.
usually I like the lot, the owner last name or name or LLC if it's an LLC, the parcel ID and the number of acres or
Yeah.
square feet, depending on what, if square feet makes more sense.
Yeah,
And this-
well, I mean, all the ones that have been sold off do have the names on the lot.
Yeah.
And the square footage, there's a square footage chart.
Yeah, and that's right over
Yeah.
here.
I mean, I'm thinking
Yeah,
of
I
like,
I can clear that up.
I mean, other subdivisions we've approved though, haven't, you know, it just shows the lots. And we haven't asked them to say on every single lot, like, who owns, because we know who owns the lot.
Well,
Just
I
apply for the
have-
Subdivision.
I have, if it's clear, because I think part of the issue with this too is this is an existing residential PUD. So this isn't like a brand new, like de novo piece of land. This is an existing
So that we
development.
know.
So that way we actually know, because some of these are privately owned,
That's true.
like, this one. These two are privately owned.
Mhm.
I think this one over here is privately owned.
Yeah.
So again, it's just clarifying what that is. That's just typically something they do. Again, it's less of an issue if it's like, just to use an example we're all familiar with, like Hillview, right? Because that's all owned by Hillview Heights. Nobody else owns it. It's brand new,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, that's what I was
Whereas if
thinking, that
if all of a
is-
sudden he sold a couple lots, we would want to know who
That's
owns
true.
what.
Yeah, well, that's an easy fix. All right, the next thing is the driveway for lot 7 is not noted on the site plan, so lot 7. Yeah, well, and this comment will come up several times that, yeah, I don't design where the building's going until I have a client usually and build what they want, and I don't, depending on the design, it depends on where the driveway might come in. It might come in on the side parallel to Thompson Road, or it might come in parallel to that access road between 6 and 7. And for me to guess that now, it just seems premature. All right, the next comment is, no landscaping is shown on the plan set. And as I explained in the application, I'm asking for a waiver from this requirement because I have tried to create a homeowner association that has hopefully the lowest fees of any homeowner association. And one way I've done that is to really limit the homeowner association dues to snow plowing and lawn maintenance. Lawn maintenance is a lot quicker if it's an open piece of land. That's one reason. Another reason is that everybody's that's bought so far, the view of the round church is really important to them from their lot, and putting a bunch of trees in between could block their view. I mean, some of them have a kind of a marginal view to begin with. So we've taken the approach that the homeowners own their lots and they can landscape the way they want. Like Jerry Feenan on lot 3 has done a lot of landscaping. Others have chosen to keep it, pretty minimal. To me, that makes more sense. Yeah, the other reason is that we're really trying to design in the period of 1800, maybe 1810 to 1850, the federal period and the Greek revival period. And if you look at old photos from that period, landscaping was really kept to a minimum. Nobody had, at least the photos I've seen, nobody had plantings up against buildings. You might have a tree or two, and they might have a garden, but part of what makes it look like that period is that landscaping really is kept to a minimum.
And the problem, Gary, is if we were to allow that, that opens the door to the landowner, the future landowner, not doing any landscaping. Now, I know you've indicated that, but we have to satisfy our ordinance.
Well, you don't. Everything is waivable on a PUD. I mean,
Well, I think that might be a little bit of, so where this gets really, really complicated, to a certain extent, that's just the bat bulbs overheated. Hang on a second. Complicated a little bit is that PUDs are conditional uses, even residential PUDs, and the problem is once it's conditional use, baked into the conditional use part is site plan requirements, which note in section 5.5 point three, minimum landscaping costs associated with conditional uses, and that is in 5.5.3B. And there's in fact a whole little chart that kind of speaks to that.
Yeah, so what percent, Tyler, what percent is required?
It depends on the the total construction costs of the project. So if you look at that, and I apologize, I'm pulling the bulb overheated, so I have to restart the projector. So while that's coming back up,
Okay,
your minimum costs for total construction costs for the project. Minimum is if it's under 250,000, it's 3%. If it's the next 250,000 is 2%, and if it's over $500,000 in construction costs, it's 1% of the project cost in landscaping.
so 1%
Of whatever the final total construction cost would be.
Is that
well, given
on a-
that the lot, I don't know.
It's to be fair, Gary, it's weird because this is more of a fit for like kind of a true, well, for lack of a better word, the more common PUD that we see is like kind of a traditional like mixed use building, right?
Yeah,
Like Buttermilk or I'm thinking one we just did on Depot Street, which is the former Gifford's Funeral Home, where
Yeah.
you had a mix of uses there. You had residential uses up above, you had ground floor, there's some commercial spaces, there's parking out back. That landscaping requirement more would speak to that building. That building has to have a certain dollar amount of landscaping associated with it. A residential PUD that's actually a subdivision, to my knowledge, this is the first one that I've seen in the 3 years that I've been here. I know I'm sure there's probably others. I think there's a set of condos that off of Main Street, which is also a residential PUD, I believe. But it's not super common. But again, the trigger for this is because it's conditional use. If you read 5.56.3 notes that there's site plan review standards, which kicks you over to section 5.53. And in section 5.53, letter B notes the landscaping. Now, to be fair, there's a little bit of a disagreement between both myself and Keith as to whether or not what's in 5.53 are hard things that an applicant has to have on their site plan that the board can tweak. An example of that would be like something like a curb cut, right? So I would say is an applicant has to show a curb cut, but the board could just say, we want to have the curb cut located on the north, south, or east or west portion of the property for whatever reason, right? But they
Yeah.
have to have a curb cut. That's not an optional thing. Another option would be, an example would be like a pedestrian path, right? So that could be, let's say an applicant only puts one on a site plan. The board could say, nope, we want to have 4 or 5 and we want them to go in spot X, Y, or Z, whatever that is. But the fact is, the matter is that you would have to have one. Keith's coming at it from a different angle where he says that the board may choose to put these conditions on the site plan. And if they do, it has to meet certain standards. Again, we're kind of going back and forth on that because the real issue is in section 5.53. It reads, the DRB may impose conditions and safeguards upon the approval of a site plan with respect to features authorized by Act 4416 as amended. So one way to read that is may isn't shall. So the board could require these things or they could not, according to Keith. However, if you keep reading, the last sentence notes conditions of approval for site plan review include, but are not limited to the following. So I read the include part to mean is that you have to include this.
So it's ambiguous.
And then we get into a problem where is, okay, let's say, why would we even have a minimum landscaping cost if an applicant chooses not to show any landscaping? Right? What is there, then what is the point of having that minimum landscaping cost? In addition, if you carry on to the rest of site plan review, it notes that a major amendment to the site plan is a change to the landscaping. So if these weren't hard standards, why would it matter if an applicant change the landscaping on the plan if it wasn't in fact a requirement to have in the first place. Now, I wanted to offer that, and again, me and Keith do disagree on that, but in fairness to you, Gary, Keith's interpretation is much more friendlier to what you're doing than what mine is, and I wanted to at least present both to
Well,
the board and see how you guys wanted to,
yeah, I
to
think
approach
that's
that.
something the board can discuss.
Yeah, that would be your call, how you wanted to look at it, but.
So we understand, Gary, what your point of view is, and we'll have to discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, if you do go with a hard standard, you know, these are small lots, trying to, like if you have $1 million home and you have to put $10,000 worth of landscaping around it, that a homeowner might not necessarily want. I mean, whose benefit are we doing this for?
Why don't we move on then? We know
Right.
the issue.
All right, sounds good. All right, the next thing is highlighted is applicant's narrative indicates they will plan to build 1 to 2 homes a year. So I was intended that statement would be read as a maximum. My history on this project has been like 1 home every roughly 3 years. And I can't imagine doing 2, although I put it in there that, you know, if I get injured and I just have to sell lots and I can't build them myself anymore, I wanted to leave an opening that I could sell 2 lots 1 year and kind of get through this process quicker. But I really, unless I end up in the grave sooner than I hope, I'm gonna keep building. The next thing is, there's no building envelopes for lots 2, 4, 5, and 7. My thought and the thought on the previous approvals is that the building setbacks created the building envelope, that you didn't have to. So the building envelopes on all these lots are shown, they're shown at 10 feet, which is what is gonna be approved by the town. It was approved by the planning commission. So, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe the rules have changed that now I have to actually show a building envelope within what I thought was the building envelope. Has things changed or?
Gary, what letter are you on again? I'm sorry, I'm trying to scroll up to it. 11 still?
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, so it does note on there, let me see, there's no, in that section 5.5.2, it notes that existing features, contours, structures, utility easements, rights of ways, things that have to be kind of, or proposed, in 5.5.2 C2, proposed land development, which is land use areas, structures, driveways, curb cuts, parking, loading areas, traffic circulation, pedestrian walkways, outside display, signs, site grading, landscaping, planting, screening, setbacks, buffer strips, outside lighting. That's stuff that's supposed to be shown on the site plan.
okay, but my question is the building envelope whatever remains after you delineate the building setbacks?
I believe.
That's my
Yeah.
understanding.
I think that's
Yeah.
correct.
I think
This
that's
is very clear to me too. It shows the setback lines and the building envelope. This is how I've submitted every.
Okay.
Simple enough to add to your statement.
I think the issue was like that proposed structure, my point called that out, is if you're planning on building homes on those, it does note that you're supposed to show proposed land development on there. And again, this is weird because if this was just a regular, the only reason you're doing a residential PUD, Gary, my guess is because to get around that, having minimum of 1 acre lots in that particular area. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to show that. But because it's a residential PUD and it triggers that site plan stuff, again, this is per my interpretation of it. You know, for Keith's interpretation, he wouldn't view this the same. Is that
No, but you're the zoning administrator.
that is true, but I do try and point out the fact he does interpret it as well, so. So we did have quite a bit of discussion about that internally. But anyways, my point being to that is that it does note on here that you're supposed to show that. Now, it's weird because you're doing a residential PUD. If this were a commercial project or something like that, that would make more sense. I would agree that it doesn't necessarily make sense for a residential PUD, but it doesn't mean that I can necessarily waive it because it's still a requirement for the PUD, for a PUD.
What are we waiving?
With him not having to show where the buildings could
Building
potentially go.
But,
It's easy enough to draw in the building envelope. So I don't see why.
But a
The
building
building
envelope-
envelope is drawn
building
in.
envelope isn't the shape of a building. A building
No,
envelope
no.
is the area that you can build in.
Right.
Which
That
is
area-
what
Just so in the
setbacks
setback
are.
area.
I mean, what you could do with that is, okay, you just take a box and drop it inside of that building envelope and say, there's the
Lot-
building.
Lot 7.
Because
that
it's a
already
call out
showing
in
that.
there.
I would just put an arrow on the setbacks and say setbacks are building envelope. Because that's what,
It's just a weird
It
thing.
is.
It's in that,
Which one is not shown? Because lot 7 shows that. It shows the building envelope and
Lot
the
8.
setbacks. Lot
yeah, but he
8
doesn't do that for the other buildings. That's the
Wait.
issue.
The other
They're all there.
lots. that
yeah,
have-
they're all there.
Yeah, but again, this one has a
They're
building
all
on
there, I
it,
see
right?
them.
Lot 7 doesn't.
No,
Lot
7
8.
does. 5 and
Lot
6.
Well, no, they have the building envelopes, yes, but they don't have the actual outline of the building.
Structure.
That's what it says. You're supposed to show the
Oh,
structure.
he doesn't. Well, yeah, okay. He's kind of in a catch-22 there because he doesn't know what the structure is.
Yeah,
Like.
Yeah, it's a weird, it's again, it's not a clean fit for
Yeah, I
a
don't-
type of development that Gary's
blame him
really
for
envisioning.
wanting To not peg himself because he doesn't want to come back.
Right.
Yeah, it's, to be fair, it's just a weird thing, like with this. Now, what we could do with this, it does specifically reference 5.53, not 5.52. Now, how we have traditionally done it is we've used all of the site plan review stuff because the rest of 5.53 doesn't really make sense unless you use the rest of section 5 or 5.5. We don't have to do that, though.
So
Can't we just waive it and say, yeah, this constitutes the building envelope, let's move on?
I think we're also talking about two things. There's two notes in a row here that are different. There's the building envelope and the proposed structures.
Yeah, that's
Gary-
the issue.
Gary's talking about the building envelope. And that is just
Yeah, and that's just the
the
setback.
setback.
That's
right?
fine.
And we agree on that, I think, right?
Yeah, we just.
So, okay, so now we're talking about the structures. Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen plenty of, for what it's worth, Gary, like, we've seen plenty of subdivisions in here or PUD, maybe not PUDs, but where the home location is literally a box and you're not really, because we're not limiting the building envelope, in theory, that box could move anywhere in that building envelope when you actually build it. I don't know that we're approving that exact location of the building, because otherwise what would be the point of the building envelope?
Yeah, it's just, again, it's just a really weird fit for what he's trying to do. Because really what it is, at the end of the day, this is a subdivision.
Right.
It's
right.
not really
I think,
a PUD in the sense where one person owns it, like Buttermilk, and splits it up and
Right.
has mixed use buildings, but it's all
They're not
owned
condos.
in
I think-
common. Yeah, it's
I
weird.
think the point of it, and you guys feel free to correct me if you think I'm wrong, but I think the point of it is to just show that a house is going on that lot. Not, so that it shows there's a proposed house on this lot.
And it can be just a square.
Yeah.
All right, so
I don't think you have to limit, I don't think you have to say, oh, because you're showing a square, then the house.
House
is
has
a
to be square.
Yeah.
And we could maybe even bake that into any approval, just to be
Yeah,
careful. So if
I-
we're showing, we want to see where the structures, that there's gonna be structures on these. They're not gonna be there's not gonna be like I don't know, like a commercial building here and then a residential,
Exactly.
it's all gonna be residential homes.
Right, it could just be a square with a note that says proposed.
Placeholder, yeah.
Proposed house. or
Yeah, like
proposed
a separate
residence.
sheet actually would be best so that it's not confusing.
Well, that's the other issue, is we're supposed to have a page that says master development plan on it.
you
And
do.
just have one. Well, no, an actual piece of plan sheet, because the only ones I have here just say this.
Well, existing site plan versus proposed site plan versus.
Yeah, there's,
uh, the-
what I typically would have an applicant do, I thought, is, let's say you take what Gary has here, right? You swap out you know, this and just say master development plan. It's
That's
literally-
exactly what I did. I submitted this exact same plan with two titles. One plot a survey showing this and the other one says,
Let me double check here, Gary.
yeah, no, I gave you,
I
I
looked
gave,
through them and I thought they were all labeled the same.
no,
Maybe it's because I haven't done a PUD before, but
Plat survey.
I do find it convenient to have, you know, your existing site conditions, existing site plan, your proposed site, you know, plan.
Plat survey,
Proposed changes on
plat
there, actually.
survey. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm just looking through all the copies here, Gary, to see if there's a different title on here that I missed. I have master, okay, here it is. Okay, yep. Yep, so you do have that. I'm sorry, Gary.
that's
So
all
yep,
right.
there's one here, master plan showing 9 units. Yep. So I was expecting it to be a little bit bigger, so I apologize for that, guys. That's an oversight on my part.
Why don't we move on?
Okay, so is the conclusion, or maybe you're gonna tell me this in the feedback later, but I'm to put a representation of a building, but in each lot, but that if I change that, it doesn't matter as long as it's within the building envelope. I'm not gonna have to come back for an amendment.
No, that's what I think. I mean, that's
Okay,
No, you're just trying to show the development that's gonna go.
right. You're just showing that a house is going on that site versus, you know,
okay, that's
A
fine.
grocery store or some other thing.
right.
Yeah,
We all know that, but you know.
So we could bake that in the,
Years from now, when they want to look at the site.
and you could bake that into the condition that, you know, we're allowing that, you know, you have to submit that just shows proposed home location. It doesn't obligate you to build a box or anything,
Right,
but
right.
it's a placeholder to show that it's gonna be a residential development.
Right.
Well, why don't we wait and let Gary finish and then come back?
Let's wait.
okay. So I
Uh,
think the next thing highlighted is that the pedestrian circulation. So what got approved before, and we did have.
Well, Let me ask you a question. Number 15, do you have a WW permit yet?
I have a WW permit for the house, the Feinstein Tevitt house. Because it's part of the original 6 houses that were, or 6 units that were approved. I have an application that Steve Diglio at KAS Engineering is submitting. And he's pretty confident that we'll have the permit before, you know, early October, when I would like to transfer that house.
Okay. We can make that a condition.
Right. Okay, so the next one is the one about pedestrian circulation and how we discussed when the earlier approval, we discussed sidewalks. I didn't want them, and the board approved that. The owners that are in there now that I've asked a question to don't really want sidewalks. They're happy with just walking down the road. I think for me, it's the maintenance cost. Like if we had sidewalks, the people who plow our driveways don't plow sidewalks. You know, it's like a different piece of equipment. It would double winter maintenance cost. My guess is that the homeowners would say, well, we're just not gonna plow them in winter, we'll just walk in the road, and then it's to me, it's like, why force something on people that they don't really want? The other thing, when this district was being, the zoning change were being discussed, there was talk about requiring sidewalks in places like this, and the pushback they got, like from Pleasant Street was that, you know, we don't want sidewalks. We're happy with just walking down Pleasant Street. We don't. So they took that requirement it was never in, that discussion ended, that, they weren't gonna require them. And that it was kind of left like if the town wants to require sidewalks along a street, then that's a town project and they can, push it forward. Didn't go so well on Bridge Street when they tried to do that recently, so. I guess that's kind of my position on the whole sidewalk thing. The next part is the lighting plan. Again, people seem to enjoy having a darker neighborhood. We don't have a crime problem on that side street, and as I mentioned, well, I guess I didn't mention, I mentioned it in my comments, but you probably haven't had a chance to read them. I was involved in the lighting of the newer part of the Church Street development. You know, after the first 6 houses or so, that was developed, the rest of it was developed as a unit. And neighbors weren't happy about lights shining in their bedroom windows. I also installed for the town and for the Historical Society, the 2 street lights that went in at the Round Church Park. And again, the neighbors were not happy about those, and we now have those on timers, so they shut off earlier, much earlier in the evening instead of being 24 hours. In the other place, I installed the lights for the town center, and when that project was done over in the early 90s, and again, we got pushback from the Dwyers, which are out by the back parking lot. We got pushback from people on Church Street, and we now lamp those with incandescent bulbs and took out, first we had metal halides, then we had another version, and people were saying, look, we can read the newspaper in our house from 500 feet away. So I know there's a safety issue in parts of town. I don't think there's a safety issue here. I don't think people in this neighborhood really want to have streetlights on. So that's why I'm doing it that way. I don't personally, I'm not gonna live in that neighborhood. You know, I don't have an opposition to it personally to have lighting. All right, the next one is applicant does not have a landscape plan. We've kind of discussed that already. Then the next one is number 13, you know, town waters. All lots are served by town water and sewer. The next one is the 1 to 2 year time frame thing we mentioned already. Now we're down to 18. Let's follow the. Let's
I
see.
had a question about what is the size, the diameter for the water main going into this development and the sewer main?
Sewer main is 8 inches. The water main is 4 inches, which was approved by the water and sewer manager at the time. And my engineer has told me that isn't, a 4-inch main will serve around 18 to 20 houses, which is, you know,
Yeah.
far more than I intend to do.
And the sewer main was adequate as well at that time for,
8 inches the size of all sewer mains, I think. I mean, unless you get the really big, but I think the sewer main that runs up Thompson Road is 8 inches too. They have letters that is in your packet that was given out tonight from Chris Spence certifying all the work was done according to the water and sewer, and the roads were done to town standards, and the public works specs for water and sewer. I also have a letter from engineer who oversaw the work of extension of the water and sewer mains. saying it was done according to permit. So are you ready to move on to number 18?
Yep,
Right. It's the critical permit conditions one again, and
there's
I've
20.
alluded.
Yeah, Gary's number,
20.
Gary's numbering's a little off because he tweaked some.
Oh, yeah, it's 20. It's 20 on your paper. Yeah, sorry about that. I couldn't figure, the numbering system is automatic. I couldn't figure out how to adjust it. Once I added my comments, some things automatically renumbered, so.
Pain in the butt.
Caused problems in the regs itself. We have duplicates, we got all kinds of stuff in there.
So this is the discussion about critical permit conditions under the Stowe Club Highlands test. I feel like having almost a quarter of the project in common area is suitable for this location, and that lot 8 should not have any critical permit conditions attached to it, and that I think it's in the best interest of the town. It's obviously in my best interest, but you know, there is a lot of effort to add units in town, and I'd hate to see you restrict it beyond what I've already restricted it, which is 50% more square footage required than what's required under Act 47. The next thing is let's see,
Wetlands.
wetlands. All right, so the wetland buffer is delineated. That is the reason why lot 6, the Fines and Tebbets lot, is so big. The earlier permit I had with the town, I had the same woman delineate it, but the delineations are only good for 5 years. And when I had her back, she increased the size of the wetland quite a bit. And I had planned to do 3 lots along the lot 6 and 7 line. And with a new delineation, I lost a lot there. But we are staying out of the wetland buffer area that's proposed. Let's see, the paving requirement, the board, your board passed that it did not have to be paved. I'm asking for the same thing. Personally, I don't think it would be fair to have people buy into an approved PUD. 4 people have bought into it based on having roads that aren't paved, and to me, it doesn't seem fair that you would change that now.
That's one you guys can waive. That's in the public works specifications.
All right, next, I guess the next one is still 25 XI, a letter from a professional engineer. So, as I mentioned, I have Doug Goulet, who has submitted one on water and sewer. And then Chris Spence submitted one, dropped one off, saying we built the road to the required 24-inch depth, and he reminded me that we had built the road halfway what's built there. We had built it to what was the town spec of 18 inches, and when the town changed the spec to 24, we dug up the road another 6 inches deep and put in 24 inches of gravel. So it's fully up to the specs. As far as the engineer on stormwater, the earlier permit Patrick Monks was on the board then, who I think knows a lot about stormwater. I'm not sure what his job is with the state, but he was, what we had proposed and what was approved is that we were gonna have sheet flow across the property towards Cocken Road, and it's such a long area that most of the water would seep in under most conditions. And so that I have approval for the 6 units based on, from you. The engineer looked at the state permit at the time. The impervious soil amount that triggered state permit was 1 acre, and I got a letter which is in your packet from Steve Diglio, saying that the calculations he figured out over the last few days is that if, because I've already started this project, the state rules that the 1 acre controls, I would not likely need a permit even for the amendment. But if I do, it's not triggered by the Feinstein Tebbet House portion of it. And that, so my proposal to you was, because I'd really like to get them in as soon as the house is done, and they'd very much like to be in as soon as they can, is that, you know, you prove lot 6, and then Steve Diglio is gonna do the testing and come up with a stormwater plan for the other lots. And but he said he can't, that's gonna take testing, it's gonna take a while. So that's why I'm asking for approval, that you approve the lots, but that you put a condition in that there be no building permits issued for anything further until the stormwater permit has been received. And I think we could do that 2 ways. You could say that, well, when the permit comes in, I automatically can go ahead. In that situation, I think makes sense if you people generally just take a stormwater permit on its face and say, well, that's all we need for the local regulations. Or if you have your own independent viewpoint beyond the states, and you could put the permit condition to say that I'd have to come back for further review on those other lots. That's something that you guys will have to figure out what you want to do, if anything. As I say, I think the Feinstein Tebbett's house was built under everything that, you know, the previous approval, and didn't require state approval, so I'd hate to see that transfer held up, which could be for a good period of time, because of this. All right, if there's no questions, I'll move on, but if there's a question, I'm happy to try to answer it.
No.
All right, so the next one
Go on
is
to the hammerhead turnaround.
turn around. So if you look at the plan, you come in on Peaceable Street, and it's a 45-degree bend, another 45-degree bend, and then it goes straight back. So there's a chance that whole lot may be retained as 1 acre. If that's the case, then it is that last section of Peaceable Street, the straight section, is really just a driveway to 1 house. And the turnaround for the end of Peaceable Street would be where the driveway splits off the lot 5 and 6. There's kind of a natural hammerhead right there. So I didn't propose any kind of cul-de-sac or anything, because we don't know what's gonna happen at the end of lot 8. All right, getting towards the end here, I guess. All right, number 28 and have sidewalks or bike racks. We talked about sidewalks. The residents all have their own storage areas, and the common land is not a public area. It's for the residents. So I'm not sure who would be benefited by a bike rack. I would assume that people would just put their bikes in their own storage areas on a lot. Next one, 29, master development plan.
You can disregard that,
Yeah.
given that we have that.
We have that.
The number 30,
Landscaping, we've discussed
landscaping,
that.
we've got, all right, number 31 is stormwater plan. We've discussed that, how I'd like to see it handled. And
Yeah,
then,
and this is the specific standard 32, it's the specific standards that it has to be built to, that in the public works spec. So it has to be designed for a 25-year, 24-hour storm event, any stormwater infrastructure.
yeah, I'm sure Steve Diglio will present a plan that has that. But I also think we don't need to do that on the Feinson lot, because that is under the prior approved, board approved lot. All right, so applicant has not presented erosion control plan. The lots are pretty flat. I'm not sure what I'd put in an erosion control plan, you know. We do put silt fencing up in places if we think there's gonna be a problem. But with such flat areas, we haven't experienced an erosion problem. Next, all right, so then items for DRB consideration.
I think you've covered all those.
I think I have two, just skimming them. Okay, yeah, I think I have two.
Why don't we open this up to the public?
Great.
Ed,
Hi, thank you.
Just a point of order, there's no mic back there, so if you're gonna come up, I would come up here. There is a mic over by where Wendy and sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, sir.
That's all right.
he
Thanks for the,
needed to move anyway.
you're right. How did you know? Thanks for the opportunity.
And sir, what was your name? I'm sorry, I'm just.
Oh, sorry, my name is Ed Wells, 44 Cochrane Road. And I guess I'd just like to open by saying, Gary and I and Susan, we have a very good, very open communication. I don't want anything that I say tonight to get in the way of that. But I would like to make just a couple of observations. Since we did just talk about stormwater, and I've expressed this to Gary that after the last deluge of rain, we're seeing very unusual amounts of water draining off the lot.
Which lot are you speaking to? Gary, off of Gary's?
No, water, we're on the down slope.
I got you.
Our
If you want to use the map.
Our lot, Wells, 44 Cochrane, is on the a very slight, but definitely it's at the lower end of the drainage in there.
Which
And-
side is it coming from? Is it, because you're kind of, you've got two sides there. Is it the open lot
Yep,
kind of, or is it the,
Can I just go and point?
Sure,
yeah,
please
I
do.
think that might. And I was explaining this to Tom Butler recently. There's a sort of either a man-made or natural swale on the boundary right here. And the water will actually come down like a stream. during a heavy rain. And we've been out on this lot for over 30 years, so we've seen quite a few times of, particularly in the spring, but in our new climate situation, it seems to be happening in the summer now. It's coming down through there. I'm noticing some pooling up in the back here that we've not seen before. We have sort of a low corner in here, and it spills over to this.
And where's that water coming from?
There's a natural slope coming this way,
Okay,
and so it's draining, and it's going here. There's a little culvert here, and all this water has to go to a small culvert.
and that culvert's probably undersized.
It's very, very much so.
So Ed, has this changed during your 30-year tenure? Has the development on Gary's lot affected that flow of water, or has it always been the same?
The only thing I've noticed is the landscaping work that went on around the former Carpenter house did tend to fill in that lot a bit. And Gary can fine tune this, I'm sure, but I guess I'm noticing less pooling over in that area and in the immediate area of the house, and maybe a little bit more along the boundary area. But that's just anecdotal information. It's not scientific by any means.
What do you think would remedy the situation?
Say it again.
What do you think would change it to make it better?
I think there needs to be a plan along the road to have drainage
You mean
and
along Cochrane Road?
along Cochrane Road, because that seems to be where the water, once it starts pooling, it just needs to go somewhere, and the only culvert is to the
Is that culvert under Cochrane Road?
it is.
And where
It's a
is
town
that culvert exactly, Ed? Can you show us?
It's a town culvert
I
then.
know, but where is it?
Here's our culvert, I would say, is probably about right there.
All right, and point your house out again. It's the one on the left, right?
This is our house.
Okay, so it's downstream from your house on
It's
down Cochrane Road.
downstream,
Okay, I
correct.
get it.
And all the water, and we have sort of a bottleneck at our driveway because we don't have a culvert under our
Mhm.
driveway, and we'll take responsibility for that. And that will help relieve pressure that's building up over here. For some reason, when we improved our driveway, we never put a culvert in, but that will certainly help in here. I'm raising this just because of the increased volume of water I'm seeing collecting in the back. My tomatoes took a beating this year because they sat in water for such a long time.
And there's only one swale between your property and what's the other one right next door?
That's correct.
Okay, and then on the between Gary's there and yours, there's not a swale, it's just a natural sheet flow onto your property.
There's a natural pooling right along Cochrane Road and the boundary line. And it actually it was actually coming very close. Our driveway is probably about right in here, and the water was actually pulling up. We have a little parking area here. We had to move a car because the water was actually coming up onto the little parking pad we have here. Which was, in 30 years, I've not ever noticed that in the summertime.
Hey, can I just interject a second here? I can't hear anything when Ed moves away from the mic, so I've missed 3 times now what he's said, so you'll have to fill me in if you want me to respond to something.
Gary, he was just discussing the pooling of water off Cochrane Road.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know any of the specifics of what he said, so it's hard for me to try to respond.
Should I do a quick summary, or do you want?
If you wish, sure.
Gary, I was just pointing out the pooling that occurs along the Cochrane Road and our boundary line where those cedars are out near the road.
Okay,
And it seems as though with the question was asked by the board, have I seen any more pooling occurring with the construction that's been going on so far? And the only thing I've noticed is with the landscaping you did around the old Carpenter house, it seems like it's moved the water away from the Carpenter house, which is what it was designed to do.
Right.
But that's the only perceptible change that I've seen so far. The big change is just the increase in volume of pooling that's occurring in the summer. That's new.
so Ed, can you tell me, you know where your property line meets Tom and Wendy's at the street? Is that about where the culvert goes under the road?
It's actually more going in the direction of their driveway. I would say probably maybe 40 feet from our boundary line,
Okay,
and it goes across and it goes between Spranos and Richardson's.
right. So is there a way to get to that culvert from like where you're saying it's ponding at the corner, the northwest corner of your property? Is there a way to get that water to that culvert?
If we add a culvert under our driveway, for some reason, when we improved our driveway, a culvert was never installed. I think that would go a long way to relieving the pressure that's building up on our boundary line.
Right. Because, you know, that once that crosses the road, Cochrane Road, it goes between, I don't know just where that drainage ditch is, whether it's on Spranos or if it's on Richardson's. But there is a ditch there that drops all that water that gets to that ditch onto my field. So I'm just wondering if we had a culvert at your driveway, would that just solve that problem, that we could get rid of that water and dump it on my field?
I think it would improve your situation tremendously.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it's actually backing up. It's coming up to the edge of our driveway now.
yeah,
This heavy rain we had this summer, actually, for the first time, we had to move a car from that little parking pad we have because it was starting to come up there.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it was quite a storm, but yeah, I agree. I don't have an objection to that, if we could figure out a solution like that.
Anything else, Ed?
I have, yeah, just one more quick thing, and not to belabor the in regards to lot 7, probably the lot that's going to have the most impact to our boundary line. We're again, Gary and I and Susan, we have really good communication, and we haven't and Gary's planted 8 cedar trees this spring along our boundary line to help mitigate some of the lights from cars going in and out. But I guess our attention is drawn for obvious reasons to lot 7. That's probably going to have the most impact on us, and where that driveway and where cars are parked will dramatically affect our home and whether we have headlights shining in the living room and all that stuff. So I know there's not a requirement to know exactly where the building is going to go on that envelope. But maybe the board could advise us where the best place is in time to actually negotiate screening to sort of mitigate some of the effects of a driveway and cars coming in and out of there. Is that something, I
That's
mean, I'm
something the
perfectly,
applicant would- That's something the applicant would suggest to us.
okay,
It's not for us to design.
Yeah.
Property for an applicant.
All right, so, just like I didn't have any objections to putting in cedars before, I can easily come up with a plan that would probably be located on lot 7, in that 10-foot setback area. I'd like to do it there just because, just in case, we ever work out something with Wells or a future owner, or we become a future owner, or whatever happens, that we wouldn't have plantings right where we wanted to add a lot, but I think we can get a good screening, design that will protect the Wells and protect whoever owns lot 7 from the Wells.
that's all I had.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
You folks have comments?
Yes, actually, I do. Very similar. Tom Butler, 90 Cochran Road, next door neighbors.
And you're on the right side.
Yes, we are. We certainly are. And boy, is this exciting to be. This is my very first development review board meeting, and it has been scintillating. Nice to see you, Gary. Like
Yeah.
Ed, I have a great relationship, I think, with Gary, and I think he's doing a terrific job with this subdivision. There's a lot about it to admire. I've looked through your narrative, Gary, and I wholeheartely agree with your commitment to trying to maintain the architectural character of the neighborhood. Something we've tried to do with our new house. We're there at 90 Cochran Road, also trying to keep the aesthetics of the neighborhood intact. Here's my concern also about stormwater runoff. Right now, Ed already mentioned the sheet off the field and the ponding and the potential mitigation with expanded culverts and possibly some additional swale work that may help. But my real question here is, the board has approved a 6-unit subdivision. You're being asked to increase the density by 1/3, take it to 9. This open land, we're going to kick that down the road based on the narrative and the clear request not to impose any conditional permits or anything that would curtail future development of the open land, which under Act 47 could be 8 more houses, as I understand it. That'd be the 1 lot and 7. So given that the sheet water, you said your question was what might help that problem? I can tell you what will hinder that problem. When you have a field that is 100% permeable, have 3 or 4 or 8 more lots in it, and all of the impermeable surfaces that go with 3 or 4 or 8 more dwellings in that field, the stormwater runoff will be greater. Just as it is 10 years, today is far worse than it was 10 or 20 years ago. In 10 or 20 more years, all the climate models suggest that we're going to be getting more precipitation and in more intense storms that come in fewer, more intensity. So when we get a St. Johnsbury type storm and we get 8 inches of rain overnight coming down this hill on not an original 6-unit subdivision, but a 14 or 17 or 19-unit subdivision,
Okay, so.
Then that is going to blow out all of the existing infrastructure there.
Is coming to us for 3 additional lots. And what you're talking about is what he may do in that open area in the future.
Correct. He said tonight, maybe 4, but the law allows for much
Right,
more than
but
that.
That's not in front of us.
Well, so
I understand
But-
I understand your concern.
critical,
Critical points allow us. to
critical
look at that.
permit conditions
agree.
do allow you to have a role in saying what's going to happen in the future because
Right.
you don't have a master plan in front of you that says this is what's going to happen. So I guess my question is, what is your process? Is it just incremental?
No, I mean, we have to discuss this. You know, we're hearing it all for the first time and we will go into
Well-
session and discuss it.
Well, help me understand. So when a 6-unit subdivision is approved and then there's amendment to increase that density by a third, and then someone comes back again and says, well, you can't stop me from putting in 8 new houses under Act 47. And that's now almost tripled the density of the original proposal. What is your role?
Our role is to look at what he's proposing to us and what's in front of us and what he may do in the future, but that's not really in front of us. But we do have that ability through the critical points to discuss that.
Can I ask one more question?
And you're raising something that we need to hear.
So is it the developer's responsibility to underwrite that new infrastructure, or is that offloaded onto the town to upsize those culverts?
Oh, you mean under the road?
Yeah, I mean,
That'd be
essentially Cochrane Road forms a
That's
dam.
probably the town.
That's
I
our.
mean, what-
So that is, so
So
that,
one of the problems that's happening in Vermont is all our culverts were designed back in the 27 flood.
right,
And now we are finding they're all undersized.
it's a different climate.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be a different climate in 10 years.
It's not
And
getting any better.
exactly. So that's my question for the town is,
Fair enough.
we're essentially allowing private benefit, but we're offloading the public's responsibility to every time Cochrane Road blows out or a culvert gets plugged, or to upsize those culverts, or everybody's downstream.
No, those are very good points.
And to be fair, this is the very first application that we've had that has critical permit conditions in it.
Right.
This is kind of intended to replace the master development plan, what the master development plan language was trying to do, which is basically making it harder for, putting things in place where that you guys could prohibit future development, make it much harder to change an application than just coming in every 5 years and filing a new application. And as long as you
Right.
check the boxes,
Right.
you guys get the application.
Roger, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, but you asked the same question I was gonna ask.
Okay.
So this is new for everybody. This is the very first application that's gonna have these new critical permit condition language in it, so.
Well, thank you very much. Gary, do you have any follow-up responses?
Well, other than, the town is really working to have development more intensely in the village and, I think it'd be a shame for you to start adding critical permit conditions in an area where everything for the last few years has been to allow more development in the village. Also, I think when you get those St. Johnsbury, 8-inch rainstorms, whether you have impervious soil or soil that can soak things up at 8 inches in an hour or so, I don't see where it makes a lot of difference because it's just gonna pour over the land no matter what. But
Okay.
I don't know, I think with the 1 acre restriction on that 1 acre of that 2.64 acres, to me, that's enough restriction on it. I mean, to take that down to less than, 4 possible house sites is not in the best interest of the town. They're trying to add housing to the village.
Fair enough. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, guys.
What would the board like to do? I think going into deliberative session makes a lot of sense.
I'm hoping for a deliberative session.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so just so you folks know, and Gary knows, we have 45 days to make a decision. And we will try to do it as soon as possible. But we're gonna go into what's called deliberative session, where we're gonna discuss what has been presented to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
See you when you get back, Gary. Enjoy your trip.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Gary.
Thank you all.
All right.
Wish I was there. I hate doing Zoom.